All right, we should be live here.
Okay, cool.
We're still trying to get Edward on. Apparently, he had an error trying to get signed up, so I'm going to work on that. But Matt, what have you been playing lately?
I have, well, as far as train games go, I've been playing. Sorry, I'm also looking at the video feed here. Okay. As far as train games go, I've been gotten in a few games of 18 Dixie, which has been a lot of fun and a learning experience. It's one I'm not particularly good at, but it's a very, very cool game. And then what I've been playing a lot lately is PAX Premier, the newer Sierra Madre games. Well, I guess they had a bunch of new games this last year, but I've been learning and trying to teach that to anybody who wants to teach. And in fact, I just got my schmancy PAX Premier Deluxe board in the mail from Phil Eklund's garage yesterday. So now I'll be a huge Premier booster locally. How about you?
Got my first 18xx game in, so I'm kind of new to the to that vein of train game. We did a 1846. Really enjoyed it. The group enjoyed it. It was a very, obviously we were all first time players except for one, maybe two, and so it was a learning experience, definitely.
Yeah,
we all really enjoyed it. So I mean, we all came out of it saying we would do it again. So I mean, I can definitely understand the appeal.
Do you want to hang on one moment? I'm sorry, I got Ed on the phone here.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we're new to this the Hangout thing. So we've been trying to figure that out and get Ed on the Andrew said he was going to try on the Hangout. So we're going to take a technical break here.
Okay. Hey, Andrew.
Yeah.
Have you tried resending it at just the heavy cardboard email?
I did once. I'll do it again.
Give that a shot. Thanks everybody who's bearing with us on this.
Thanks for bearing with us. The whole setting up the Hangout to air to YouTube has been an interesting challenge. And the chat is still disabled. We still don't know how to get the chat working. So if you have questions,
hey, look at that.
Hey.
It was an email problem.
I'm disappointed that I didn't get a chance to have Barry White playing in the background.
Oh,
sorry.
There's still time. We were just chatting about what we've been playing lately.
All right. Oh, look at you with a big fancy microphone and shit.
I know. Crazy, huh?
Right.
I'm feeling very low tech with my headset from work. I should really up my game here.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna act like a professional,
I don't have the
Jesus
screen.
Christ, dude.
Oh well, I'm not gonna act like a professional. So.
Okay. Oh no, wait, you're a hipster, so no, that works out. That's perfect.
Yeah, I should really fire up my gramophone here and get some.
Right. So hey, I'm curious. The whole
yeah.
Matt Clark at Minneapolis Matt thing, does that show under mine?
So you got to go in and do it.
Okay, teach me.
All right. So if you look on the side, there's should be a red kind of toolbox that says Hangout Toolbox.
Nope.
Nope.
On the right.
On the left. I'm sorry.
Oh.
So kind of hover
hold
over.
on.
You'll see like a
screen share, showcase. No, I got
Q&A,
settings.
Google Hangout Toolbox.
Under Q&A.
Let's see. Chat. Fuck, I don't see Q&A. I mean, hold on, wait. Actually, let's see. Screen share. Let's see. Oh, there's a million of them. Let's
like a
do
red
this
toolbox
thing.
one.
See if that shows up. Is that? Hold on. There. Is that showing up?
No, that's just now you're sharing your computer. No, it's cool, man.
No, I'm just
figure it out.
curious how to get that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, you see? Do you guys see what I'm seeing?
Yes, I think so.
yeah.
Oh yeah, and I don't see the Q&A or the toolbox thing underneath either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Can you guys add it?
Huh.
Yes. Oh,
Alright.
to yours. I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway. So-
Yeah, it's all like I said. This has been a very technical challenge. Just getting all of this, like even the account setup, because it was like you have to go through Google Plus, and then you have to set up an account, and that account has to be like. And Google Plus is just like I never know what screen I'm on. Yeah, it's so.
Well, it's
We'll
official.
figure it out.
I think this is Rage of Steam, episode 1.
Technical problems.
Yeah,
Right.
train games and
Playing
Google
trains.
Hangout tech support.
Yeah, there you go.
Awesome.
So what have you
Well,
been playing?
Not much because I missed yesterday. They played 1880. I was supposed to run 1846, but that fell apart because I wasn't there. I was going to teach it to a bunch of newbies. Let's see, what else have I been playing? I guess just the stuff that I said on the last podcast, which is Lignum, Signori, and Reef Encounter. Yes.
right. Yay, all right. That's what I like to hear.
Yeah, but other than that, not much. Just been sick, and so
That
that's
sucks.
yeah, it does. But I did bring for show and tell. I brought some.
Ooh.
We have some Winsome stuff. We have, let's see, we have 1817.
Oh, very
to
nice.
be able to talk about. We have a custom 18AL box.
Cool.
And two more. We have train theme stuff here, Steamroller.
Yeah.
And, of course, Age of Steam. So
Yeah.
I figure, we
Warthog
can
edition.
as we talk about this stuff, we can actually show it off. Maybe, I don't know. You guys might not want that. I was just trying to think outside the box, so to speak.
No, I'm glad you did. Yeah, I don't have any brand new acquisitions, but next episode I should have something fun and weird to show
Yep.
off. So I'm
Excellent.
excited. Yeah.
Cool.
And so Andrew, Andrew was saying he just did a newbie game of 1846. How long did you guys' game go?
We started at 9 a.m. and I think we were done by 2, but we called it.
Okay.
But yeah, we had somebody in the group who had played a 1830, like in the past, had played some 18XX games, and then but the teaching was, I mean, it took a good hour or so just to get some of that down.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
But it was interesting because I thought there would be some like reaction of like I never want to do this again type stuff, and it went much better than that, to where people were like, no, they'd be interested in doing it. Like I said, we've had this conversation. It's just finding the time to set aside for that. We had played Baltimore, Ohio with the same group.
Oh, cool.
And they had liked that. And so when I said, hey, we're going to do this, the 1846, and Adam had taught us Baltimore, Ohio, everybody was kind of like, they kind of knew what they were in for. And
Cool.
it was very enjoyable. Just trying to figure some of that out. And
So none of y'all, just that one person had played 1830 prior?
yeah, well, and Adam has played quite a few. So
That was Adam Brocker, right?
yeah. Adam,
Okay.
he's kind of in my gaming group. I mean, yeah. He has family and stuff, and so it's we occasionally game. I have every Tuesday night that he has come to on occasion. So I do like a Tuesday night group, and we usually play like 2-hour Euro games. I mean, that's essentially what we play.
Okay.
But every so often we try to set up something a little bit longer. But yeah, he lives nearby, and so he wanted to set this up.
Cool. Well, end result, was it all overall positive? I mean, as a general...
Yeah. I think it's one of those things to where when we play it again next time, I think the end result of those type of games or those teaching games is that like, well, we're learning, but it's not like I won or I didn't even know what my strategy was because I didn't know the complexity of the game yet. And so it's always nice to have that. Well, the next time we play it, that'll be the game, right? Because now we went through the whole thing, and I think some lights popped on about like what you need to do, and it's a simple, complex game. It's lots of choices and lots of ways to screw yourself up.
Well, that and butterfly effect, because you don't know that some choices you made now, like I played a game, the first of 1846, the night we got to BGG-Con, which is Tuesday, and I tried a different strategy that I'd never tried before. I opened the B&O and then parachuted in where it's allowed to over on the western side of the map, and basically that move cost me the game. Like, I could not recover from that move, and 4 hours later, all the way through, I was playing catch up, but I'd realized that my very first choice, after we'd gotten the privates dealt out and chosen, ended up costing me the game. So, but I still enjoyed it. I enjoyed that uphill climb, but that's how you learn in 18xx games, is trial and error. Oh, that didn't work. Let me not do that again.
Right. And I think, and one of the players had set the stock value a little too high, and that the ramifications of that kind of haunted him till the end. And then a lot of it was just not like knowing what privates to take or what they, that's when I go into games like that, it's like trying to digest all of that right off the bat. And I tend to be in a learning game, just make a decision and let's go, because we're really we're not really. Like, don't get too AP over it, because the idea here is that we're all going to learn from this, what's going on here, and move forward. And so don't really worry about it, because it's going to be wrong. And so I tend to just grab stuff and go, and then see what other people do. Now I know better. I know some stuff for the next time. But
sure.
That's the best way to treat a learning game.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they drag. That's the reason you hear about these 6 and 7 hour 1846 games that make me want to just claw my eyes out.
Yeah. Well, and it's with Euro games the same way. It's like there are game nights that we have where it's like, hey, none of us know this game. We're gonna play it. It's like, don't agonize over the win.
Right.
It's like, tonight's not about like next game. But then I have a guy in our group who he's very good at breaking stuff. Like, he's very good at he can pick out that thing that not breaks the game, but he like focuses on a strategy. And his point is that usually that first game is the one he'll win, because he can figure that out before we wrap our heads around the strategy, right? Like, we're trying to figure out the strategy. Well, he'll win in that. But then he says later on, once we catch up, understanding like the whole, like, we'll do better later on than he will, because we're better at some of those things. So, but yeah, I didn't agonize over the decisions too much, because I knew it was going to be. I have no idea what's going on, but and then once you see the mechanisms in place, you start to see, oh, okay, well, now I have to think about that next time.
And 46 is a kindler, gentler game.
So I've heard. Yeah.
I think I saw it suggested in the Heavy Cardboard forums about, if you have the time, that a good way to introduce 18xx to some players is just take a game like 1830 and just play through the 4 trains, and that gives enough. So the first train rusting gives everybody sort of an idea of like, oh, okay, that's what we got to get ready for.
Now? I just bought them. They haven't even run. Yes.
Yep. And it's one of those. I mean, I like to play a game to the end as much as anybody, but I'm like, oh yeah, if you have the time, it's not bad. Of course, I usually try and foist 1889 onto people, which is essentially truncated 1830 anyway. So,
which, having played it now, I would agree with you. 1889 is basically 1830 in on an island in Japan. And it's awesome. It's great. It's fast. It's short, and you get everything except for one thing that 1830 has, and that one thing is, I personally do not like 1830.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with the fact that it's more stock shenanigans. I like that side of the game. I also like the run a good company side
Sure.
of 18xx. But the reason I don't like 1830 in particular, I like all the clones just about. I just don't like 1830 is the tile manifest, the tile options are so restrictive.
Yeah.
I just don't enjoy that aspect of that one map. But even though it's the same, similar tile group for 1889 and say 1857, I thoroughly enjoyed both of those games. So those
Cool.
would be a couple that I could recommend as beginner ones, along with 1846.
Right.
So I was thinking about this question, and if you eliminated 18xx from the train game genre, would you still like train games?
Yes.
Yes. And I think for me, most of my history with train games is based in the Winsome games. So even with now, would there be Winsome games the same way without 18xx? I'm not sure. Like, yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, my clamshells! Hooray! But if I had only ever played Chicago Express and Age of Steam, I would still love those games. Like those were my first, serious train games, I guess.
Right.
And they're great. They're great games. So
See, for me, I dig trains. Like let's just remove the game aspect. Just I like the idea of what they represent in the history of train companies, and just like the other day there are two sets of train tracks near my house.
okay.
And as long as I'm not in a rush, I don't terribly mind getting stopped by the train, because it just kind of, you can watch them go by and wonder, I wonder where this is coming from. Did this make it? Is it taking coal from the coal mines of West Virginia and coming here? I don't know. I just love that. There's just something, I don't know, some bigger thing than just the trains themselves and what they represent and the history and all of that. So I dig trains in and of itself. As a little kid, I was fascinated by train layouts, like model railroad, whether it's N scale, Z scale, HO, whatever. I've always been fascinated with the layouts. So then, as I get into the hobby, there's train games, even though it's all about the economics and such and stocks and all that, which I thoroughly enjoy. It just, all of it, bringing all that background into it, makes me enjoy these games even more. Like if it was about, I don't know, the automobile industry or whatever, fill in the right word, would I still enjoy them? Yes. Would I enjoy them as much? I don't know. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what's always my draw for it, has always been the history part of it. I was actually born in Colorado, Leadville, Colorado. Didn't live there much. My dad was in the Air Force, so we were all over, but we were always near kind of rural areas with trains. And then ending up in the West, and they're just such an integral. I'm in Arizona, so then they're just such an integral part of the history here, and I'm a huge history buff. And it just fits in prominently with everything that went on. And so even before I was into the the board games, I was into trains. So I think that was the same thing. Oh, hey, there's these games, and I can put myself in some of that. So yeah, I mean that's my draw to it.
And my wife's grandfather worked for BNSF.
Cool.
The company, and actually that's why our little mascot is called Davis. It's his last name, and so kind of to honor Amanda's family and the fact that he worked in the train. So we have a little teak elephant, which you guys have probably seen pictures of and whatever.
I've played games with Davis.
I have seen it.
There you go. He's about yay big, a little teak elephant that we ordered, and he's the namesake of the show for the heavy cardboard stuff. And yeah, so all of that history ties into it. And I think it's awesome that Amanda is big into the train games as well, which, let's face it, it is a very heavily male-dominated part of the hobby. As a general rule, right, wrong, or otherwise, just fact, is the fact that it's very mathy. A lot of the train-themed games are mathy. Not all. You have Railways of the World, Ticket to Ride, and all that stuff. But excuse me, still dealing with being sick, and today's the worst day of it, so I'm faking it as best I can. I apologize.
No problem.
So you have the majority of them, 18XX, Winsome, Age of Steam, stuff like that. They're all tend to be on the more mathematical side of things, and men, as a general rule, not excluding anybody. I think it's awesome seeing more women in train games, but I wonder if that's the reason, because Amanda doesn't normally like math stuff, yet she loves playing these train games. We have the other ones. There's Coffee Runner in our guild, and she is a
oh yeah, Rebecca. Yep.
She's a big train gamer. We have Morganza, who is she eats, breathes, and sleeps train games. So it's not all, but the fact that you can kind of point out there are particular ones, it's kind of a bummer, but it is what it is.
You know, I'm sure you saw in the Yahoo group the talk about the Double X Chromosome games at Chattanooga this year. That's awesome. All ladies games of 18XX for the first time at Chattanooga. So I think we're seeing, you know, maybe it's just going to take some more visibility of like other ladies seeing that there are women playing these games, getting interested in these games, and learning these games. Because I think generally it's still a pretty, it's very niche, but it's still a pretty friendly.
But it runs the
segment of the hobby. Like
it runs the gamut. I mean, when you talk about, like Edward, you mentioned the Ticket to Ride, Colt Express. I mean, like the theme has permeated, all areas of the
hobby. Yeah.
Of the hobby. So I mean.
Yeah, and that's interesting, right? Like, there have been train games for a really long time in the board gaming hobby. Like,
is that just because of the people? Is it because it's the easy to simulate type thing, or that I want to simulate it, or is it, what makes it? Why are they there?
And that's a really interesting thing. Maybe it goes back to that history. Trains have been around longer than cars, but could you do the exact same thing, but with car companies?
See, and I was thinking about this actually.
Or airlines, for that matter, or whatever.
Right, before we did, or shipping, right? Like, that's another one that springs to mind immediately. And I wonder if it is because, first of all, train games like war games are map-based, so that sort of lends itself to board gaming in general, I think. But also with railroad companies, the idea of like you being a singular kind of force controlling a railroad company and building those lines out and making decisions for the railroad company, I think gels in my mind better than, say, automobiles. Like, the people making cars don't make roads, don't drive the cars. It's not all the same entity like that.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Plus,
and then
it's historic. Oh no, go ahead.
Oh yeah, but I think you're also right. Like, a lot of the early designers of this stuff are people that must have been involved. I mean, we know that they were involved in the wargame hobby too, which is very history-based. So I'm sure guys like Tresham and those Avalon Hill guys and Alan Moon were all like, "Oh, this is cool. We can do another historical simulation game, but with these economic railroad interests. We can fight with money and not with bullets." That kind of thing.
No, that makes total sense. And to kind of double back, to double back on what we were talking about with Chattanooga. So 18XX in particular, and I guess 18XX players tend to be Winsome players, I think, as a general rule as well. So that part of the hobby, I think, gets a bit of a bum rap, that it's very stodgy, it's very standoffish, it's very, look down your nose and you're going to get destroyed, we don't welcome new players type thing. On the opposite side of that, that's exactly what I expected to hear about the Chattanooga train game convention that just went down. And we have a buddy, Paul Chad, or Chad, who went to it and fully expected to go the first day, be around a bunch of assholes and take the rest of the time and not go to the rest of the convention and just sightsee in Chattanooga.
Sure.
Come to find out, he said people couldn't have been more warm and welcoming. Now, obviously, he is an experienced 18xx gamer, but he was worried that it was all going to be about the Puff and Billy tournament and everything, and not a single person gave two hoots about the actual tournament. It was all about, hey, let's just play these games and have a good time, and just everybody was super nice. And I was like, when he told me about this, I was like, wow, I would have expected the dead opposite of that, just because, let's face it, outside of present company and the people that I game with and the people that y'all game with, there are certain vocal people in the hobby on various message boards and forums that give the impression that that is not how the hobby is, and we thought that our group was the exception to that, and that we're welcoming, we want new players because it's just going to give us more of the opportunity to play these games. Come to find out, those stodgy, unwelcoming, very social, I don't know, just mean people are the exception. And I think it's going to take some work, but I think that's an important stereotype to get rid of when it comes to this part of the hobby.
Yeah, I've not found all the groups that I've met or have been welcoming, and I do think when you're in somewhat of that niche, that you tend to seek out those people who, you know, I'm now trying to find more people who want to play these games with me, and so, you know, and you start cultivating those discussions, and but yeah, no, it's interesting to see where the wargaming group and how that relates to trains, how that relates to the Euro, relates to the, you know, all these kind of subgroups of things. I kind of look at it like, I don't like dexterity games, but I can appreciate why people like them, but there's this whole group that, like, they find and collect and do all these things with these dexterity games. But see, I can relate because I can understand being, you know, the things that I like, and they're the smaller groups of stuff. So, I don't know.
I have yet to run into a hardcore crew of dexterity game players, but I'm excited to meet this group eventually.
Yeah, they're out there. They're there.
Do they have their own conventions?
What's that?
Do they have their own conventions too? Is there dexterity?
There is when it comes to Crokinole.
Oh yeah, I suppose.
Yeah,
huh?
I mean,
that's serious business.
Or Karam.
But, like, you know, it's that whole. Well, I don't know how much of it is the collecting and the, you know, finding that rare game and finding how much of that is the train stuff, because it is so niche. Or, you know, we were talking about the idea of the waiting 2 years to be on a list for somebody to make the game for you, and, you know,
4 years.
Yeah, it's really more like 4.
How does that?
Well, it's not helping. I mean, let's face it. But at the same time, you have GMT wading into the 1846 world, just trying to see, hey, is there a market? And they were blown away at the response of that. So when you have, let's face it, the overwhelming majority of 18xx games in particular, or even the Winsome games, it's a cost-prohibitive part of the hobby. Because a cheap 18xx game, I don't even know that there is such a thing, is $100.
Sure.
Just flat out, as a general rule, that's between $100 and $250 is going to be the cost of an 18xx game. Obviously, some of the Mayfair stuff, which is overproduced in a bad way, may be cheaper. But let me grab one of these guys. Like, all right, so we're talking about the 4-hour wait or a 4-year wait. That's 1817, and this is originally done by Deep Thought Games. Well, they have licensed it out to, I forget which one it is. It's either All Aboard Games or
All
Golden
Aboard.
Spike. Yeah.
Aboard does 1817.
Okay. And the turnaround time is less than a month on that. But that's a $235 game. So I think between very expensive as well as very niche, I think that's definitely a barrier to entry. And so there's 18AL, which we recommend. That's a print and play you can do. 1889 you can print and play. And 1830 is the most accessible in a sense that, or most available. But I'm really, really hoping that this 1846 with GMT goes off without a hitch, and we see more, not mass-produced, but more so that they're not all done by hand, so that it lowers that barrier to entry.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, and the other barrier of entry, man, especially with games like 1817 and 1870 or something like that, it's just time. So that's why another cool reason 1846 with I mean, my first game of 1846 I think we played in 4.5 hours, and I had never played an 18XX game before. So I mean
that sounds
that's
about
real
right.
doable, right? Like that's something we can do, and lots of game players can do. But yeah, when you're going to spend $100 on a game that's going to take you at least 4 hours to play, where you could be, spending $20 on a game that you're going to be able to get a lot of people to play and have fun with, that's definitely a tough decision to make.
But how many of the 18XX games take 2 to 4 years to get somebody to like that you're on a list for that long?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
So like the 18X, the ones that you're buying, like to get on a list for 2 to 4 years to get somebody to make it for you. How many are like that? Like,
well, Deep Thought Games is I guess the gold standard. I don't know if their production quality is top notch, but they're all done by hand. And Deep Thought Games is a guy by the name of John Tamplin, who doesn't do it for the money because he doesn't. It's one of those things to where he does it in his spare time, and so he doesn't. And he's not terribly motivated, it seems, lately, and so that wait list is getting longer and longer. So that's an unfortunate thing because a lot of the more popular titles are you have to get through him. However,
because he's done the licensing,
yes,
he's the only one you can get them through.
It was the case, but recently, say in the last 8 months or so, give or take a little bit, he has agreed to let Golden Spike Games and All Aboard Games produce these under the Deep Thought Games name for a premium price, which I think it's 20% markup.
That sounds right.
For expedited delivery. So I think 1846 through whichever one of those two it is, and I get them mixed up, which is which. I apologize to those guys. They do as good a quality as Deep Thought, as John Tamplin did at Deep Thought, but it's like $117, I think, for 1846, whereas GMT is doing it for $47 or $48 once it's finally produced. But there's also O&O, who is Olney and Orgler, sorry, over in Austria. They do 1880. Help me out, Matt. 1880.
Well, and what 1844 and 1854 were theirs too, but we're maybe gonna see a Lookout Mayfair. That maybe, hopefully.
Well, we've been hearing about it for years, and they're still not happy with the.
And we're going to see an 1880 reprint this year too.
We were supposed to see it in 2014, so whenever they get around to it, and that's the thing with these is the production. They're not because the print runs are so small, and we're talking dozens or in the low hundreds. It's not a money-making venture. These guys design these games because they design the games they want to play, and they happen to be they have to produce them themselves. Therefore, there's no money in it, and so they're not motivated to produce these games on a mass scale, and let's face it, there just isn't the demand for them. And that's where, I mean, not to toot our own horn here, but that's why part of the reason we wanted to do the whole 18xx, hey, this is why we dig them on our show. A lot like what the Longview did a couple years ago with Eric Brocious and Joe Huber.
I believe I put in my order for 1846 immediately after listening to that episode. Still waiting on it, of course. But.
and that doesn't help. And that's
right.
The thing. Some of these are so small a print run that when they do become available, they're $400, $2,000 for some of the stupid rare titles.
Sure.
It's just nobody's going to do that unless you are an addict like, say, my buddy Chad. Which, right. God bless him. I'm glad he is, because it gives us access to just about every 18xx game in existence.
Right.
But yeah, it's frustrating that it's such a niche, because it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. There isn't the demand, so they're not going to make a lot. If they don't make a lot, there's not going to be a lot out there, and when they are, they're expensive. So it doesn't help spread the joy of the hobby.
Definitely.
So, I'm trying to understand this. How do the war games seem to find that? GMT is built on that. I mean, could the 18xx games grow to that point to where, I mean, obviously GMT is jumping into it.
We hope.
I think that's a model that could work for 18xx games. The P500 or what's MMP's version, the P300 or something like that.
Right.
Those seem like cool systems. I think crowdfunding has worked pretty okay for 18xx when that's happened. So 18OE and 1862 was a
60 and 62, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think those are good ideas, but it's going to take companies with like GMT that have experience with larger print runs, and people that just want to do it, right? Like, so if you have a game that's being handmade right now, you're still going to have to find the people with the money and the energy and the time to say, cool, we're going to have like a pre-order system. We're going to take in these orders, and then we're actually going to do a print run of whatever it is, 500 to 1,000 games. It'll still be expensive, but yeah, I think it has the potential to work, and I'm really excited about the 1846 GMT release. I would love to start seeing some details when they start coming out, because I think you have a group. There's so many GMT fans, and you have a group that's now like, okay, we love GMT. Now let's try this game out, and I think we might see a big kind of groundswell of enthusiasm for 18xx.
And that's why almost everybody I know who is an 18xx player that has a copy of 1846 is still backing it.
Absolutely. Yep.
It's a $50 investment to grow the hobby. Yep. I don't need it. I have it. It's right across this wall. But yeah. I'm trying to support that because I want GMT and other publishers maybe to see, look, there is an audience for these if you make them available at a reasonable price.
Sure.
So, I mean, we've actually bandied about the idea of, I wonder how much it would cost to get the license for these and do it ourselves.
Sure.
And actually get into the publishing. But the problem is the print runs are so small, as they are right now, there's just, you can't do it and be profitable and pay yourself.
Right.
Right. So, are the 18xx games evolving? What are the new stuff that's? I mean, a lot of these games have been designed. They've been out there for quite a while. What's on the new? Where's it going to?
Well, there was I think tongue in cheek. Somebody mentioned the idea of a Rob Diavio, help me out. A legacy 18xx game.
Oh yeah.
I think it was more or less tongue in cheek in that, but I bet you it could be done. It would take ridiculous amount of playtesting and stuff. But I don't know what.
Because the
New
design, if
ideas.
the publishers aren't making any money off of these, the designers definitely aren't.
Oh, their
So-
labors of love.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And there's
And I think, Andrew, and you might be sympathetic to this, Andrew. I think when new designers bring games, bring out new games, I think that one of the things that drives them is that they'll say, well, no one's made an XX about this region or this
Yeah, yeah.
period in history, and it's because they have so much enthusiasm for that. And maybe there's some economic stuff that they want to tackle too. One of these days, it'd be great to talk to Jimmy about 18SW to see sort of what inspired him, since that's not tethered to a geographical location, like, you know, what got him excited to make that game. I think tackling the two-player thing is part of it for him. But yeah, I think the main thing is, you know, I just played 18SA South America from Marflow, you know, not that long ago, and it was sort of like, cool, let's see if we can do a whole game about like the South American continent. Like, I'm sure that was like really the driving force behind some of it. And then you can do some cool like rules modifications along the way. But yeah, I think a lot of it is just a love for the historical period or the geographical area.
right, because
Kind of
I
drives the
would
design.
pay somebody to design 18AZ for me.
Absolutely,
Just
right?
because I just want to play it. I just want to
Dude,
play the.
There was a winsome 18XX game that was set in the Pacific Northwest that I was like, I just want it because that's my home. I'm from
Yeah.
Portland,
Well, and I
Oregon.
know a little bit about the history of the, you know, the trains here and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I have the same experience when I first saw a copy of 18 West or saw the art online. I was like, I saw those, you know, those Minnesota railroad companies. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I need to own this one day. Like, I just have to. Like, you know, just so I can run the Empire Builder line. Like,
That's
But is
cool.
that what's driving a lot of these? Is the geography, or is it the advancing the game design of 18XX? Like
Both?
both.
I think both, because I think people get excited about, you know, whatever geography or history that they're interested in, but then, you know, maybe there's historical reasons that will drive some of the rules changes, or maybe they just have, you know, maybe they were like, oh, I want to make a game with really tough terrain, or, you know, I want to do something different with the stock market. 1817 is a crazy game, and it's just got it's just real
Shorting
different.
of stocks and all that.
Mhm,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I just started up a game of 1880 on Rails with Nicholas and Todd. And yeah, what an intense game that is, and it's just fascinating. It's like the geography is totally alien, and some of the rules are they're just completely different than anything else I've really dealt with. And like,
It has a communism phase. and-
absolutely, communist takeover.
right, which I think is fascinating, and that's part of what makes 1880 so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've not played 18FL, but I think that there's rules in 18FL for the hurricane that took out the Key West Railroad extension towards, like, you know, the early 20th century or something like that. I'm like, I love stuff like that. Like,
I
oh,
dig
that's-
that. And then
yeah.
there's stuff like, I think it's 1841 or 1849. It's one or the other. And
Sicily?
it is hard to keep some of them straight, especially because anyone listening's like, it's just numbers, whatever. It's just
Right.
numbers. But I'll circle back on that in a second. But talking about 1817, it's all about investment and shorting and all that. And the reason 1817 is it was the year the New York Stock Exchange opened, so that thematically makes sense. Well, the one I was just talking about, 1841, 1849, whatever, that'll blow your mind, because normally it's only players that invest in companies. Well, this one allows companies to invest in companies, and companies can start companies, and it's just it goes a whole nother level or two deeper. And I think it's exactly what Matt said, that it's a mix of historical companies, almost all, I would say 95+% are all based on historically accurate companies and geography. And then you have, hey, what if we do this and do a different riff on the rules? The base rules, the core is all going to be the same, and then it's just what direction is it going to go off in from there.
Which
And I
makes it a
think
lot
it's-
easier to expand into new games, right? It's an evolution of like it's already accepted that you're gonna use that base rule set, right?
Yep.
Versus like, if I'm designing a Euro game, I have to somewhat either come up with a new mechanism or really tweak somebody else's stuff, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely. And I think that's one of those things that once people, if they get the ball rolling with 18xx, they'll realize it like, oh, wow, now that I've got a rule set down, it's super easy to get into the next game,
Sure.
which is a great thing, especially when you're trying to learn like new war games every week or 2 weeks, and you have to sit down with another 30-page rule book and another playbook that goes along with the rule book and the scenario book that goes along with the playbook.
Right.
And you're like, ugh, give me 18xx. I just want to read the differences from 1830. Like, oh, we can half capitalize? Awesome, let's go.
right. That's exactly it. Because once you know one, it's small jumps for the most part into the overwhelming majority of the rest. There are some exceptions, stuff like 1817 and even a game like 1880 is vastly different. The core is there, but it's vastly different. But to go from 1830 to 1857 or to 18AL or to 1840, it's no problem. You can hit that on the ground running.
And in the Euro world, I mean, Russian railroads and all that. What's your take on the best games in that? I mean, do you still enjoy those compared to the 18xx, or how does that?
Well, I guess we kind of branch into Euros and Winsome, or do you want to keep Winsome its own animal still right now? The reason I ask is like Queen Games has gotten into and kind of Euro-ish, but like Russian Railroads in particular, that's a cool worker placement game. I would call it train themed.
Sure.
But no, absolutely, I enjoy those, and I am very much a Euro-based guy. Like, I enjoy Euros first and foremost. I also enjoy war games. I also enjoy 18xx, but Euros are my bread and butter. I guess that's what we mostly play, and I thoroughly enjoy them. I mean, Age of Steam, I guess Winsome, but you get the idea. Yeah, I did. I dig Euro theme train games, but again, when we get into the Euro side of things, theme I couldn't care less about. If it has a unique theme, that's only going to enhance the game. But as long as it's got a cool set of mechanics, I'm game, and it could be about anything or nothing, and I'm totally fine with that. Matt?
Well, I'm more persnickety than Ed.
You?
Yeah, right. I like Euros. I find myself with decreasing patience for new Euros. And as far as train games in Euro, I don't know. Like train-themed Euros, they could be good. It just depends.
I just don't think anybody's really explored, a good Euro train game. I mean, Russian Railroads, like you said, it is a little bit of a pasted on that could have been really anything.
A little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think anybody's really approached the Euro and made the mechanisms really work. At least none that I can think of.
Well, I mean, like
I said, I'm new to the hobby, so it's not like I don't know.
Maybe some of the, I mean, like the Alan Moon games, right? So, I mean, Ticket to Ride, Union
Airlines
Pacific
Europe.
or Airlines Europe. I mean, those are I like those games.
I love Airlines Europe, but
yeah.
it's airlines, not trains. But same.
But
concept.
it's based on a train game that he designed earlier,
Right.
So it's
Sure.
it's all in there. And then I mean, there's something kind of, I don't know. Age of Steam is sort of its own monster, right? Like, but maybe First Train to Nuremberg, that's pretty Euro-y, and a train game.
See, and I think the problem with getting a Euro train game is, even you're talking Russian Railroads. That's made by 18xx designers,
Yeah.
Right?
And so it's a fine line, because you can't stray into game length or game mechanics that either Winsome or 18xx games do well, because if you do, then you're going to be like, oh, I'd rather just play 18xx or whatever. Like that game over your right shoulder right there. We fairly recently reviewed Baltimore and Ohio. We enjoyed that game. The problem is, for the game length and for what it has some cool ideas, we'd just rather play an 18xx than ever play that game again. And so it becomes, I mean, it's good for gateway gamers, and by gateway I mean gateway from a Euro into an 18xx or Winsome area of the hobby. But for 18xx players, it's that real fine line, because you have to not make them want to just, oh, why am I playing this when I could be playing whatever, you know?
Sure.
And I wonder if that's part of the why people are reticent to venture too much into that category. Go ahead, Matt. I'll shut up.
Oh yeah, I was just going to say that one of the regular groups I play with, they just play 18xx all the time. Uh-oh.
Did he freeze?
I think he did.
I think we lost him.
I think we did. All right, so moving on. Well, we can carry on. I'm sure he'll come back, right? Oh, the joys of live TV or live whatever.
I'm going to eject him. I guess I can eject people from.
Wow, look at you! Oh, there he went. Bye, Matt.
The power. Let's see if he comes back. We're going to have to eject him before he gets back.
All right, so let's move on. Well,
Winsomes.
Yes.
How's it's a system. He puts them out. People pick them up. People publish them. How do you? What are your thoughts on that?
So Winsome games are the odd duck of the hobby, as if 18xx isn't already. But so John Bohr, who famously had a falling out with Martin Wallace over Age of Steam, which originally was a Winsome game. So John Bohr is Winsome Games.
Right.
Basically what it is every year he puts out a collection, a set, the Winsome 2015 set. You're either a subscriber and you get them, or you don't get them. He does 80 copies that are open to people that are not already subscribed to the list. So 80 new people every year can get on this list. And then he makes another 80 that are hand delivered and numbered at Essen, and that's all he makes. Now, the list is ever growing. So let's say in 2014, 80 more new people that haven't gotten them get added onto the list that was already, let's say, 200. I don't know. I'm just pulling a number out. So now we're at 280. 2015 comes along, add 80 more. Now we're at 360, whatever. And I jumped in on it for the first time this last year. It's $150.
Yeah.
You have to get a USPS money order, mail it to him,
and not just it has to be from the postal.
Yes, we're actually going to interview him here next month and ask him about all this stuff. It's all about his convenience.
Yeah.
They are made. They all come in these clamshell containers here. It's all handmade. The charters are all construction paper with, see if we can get it, are construction paper, are the trains. There are wooden cubes, and basically all you're paying for is the lowest production of low. $150 will get you 3 games and maybe an Age of Steam expansion and maybe some other small expansion, and that's it. And that's what it is. However, it's a bunch of different designers. Some people assume that some of these pseudonyms are pseudonyms for John Bohr himself, and some are legit people because some of these people have never been seen. Neither here nor there. But they are extremely boiled down, all about the mechanics and the interactions between players. It's almost always 0 random games and just really interesting ideas behind them. And yeah, and once you get bitten by the bug, it's hard to kick the habit, so to speak.
And then over the years, other publishers have, they license them from him and have published these, and they're still doing it. I mean, Continental Divide was out on Kickstarter from Eagle Gryphon. It's
And then Chicago Express and all those by Queen Games, right?
Yeah. Does that model work?
When you say work, what exactly do you mean?
So it's a variety of publishers. The games are changed. I mean, some publishers do different things with them. I mean, is it do you prefer, now that you have the clamshell, do you prefer that plex, you got to put the plexiglass over and play experience, or?
So that's a tricky answer. I'm glad you asked it, though, because a lot of people look at 18xx games and especially Winsome games and look at it and are like, "You're kidding me! You paid good money for that?"
Yeah,
because they're very stark looking.
They are.
However, and I was one of those guys actually before I started, and come to find out, it's all about ease of play and ease of use. And I don't think Matt is ever going to come back. It's all about ease of play. Now, let's take, for instance, the Winsome games that have been published by Queen Games, Chicago Express, Kansas Pacific, German Railways, whatever. Those are fancier versions. They have, instead of cubes, they have little wooden trains, which, hey, that's nice and everything. The problem I have with the big publishers taking over these is they do form over function, whereas Winsome is 100% function over form. And I like somewhere in between, but if I have my choice, I want a game that is very crystal clear and easy to make out things. Then, oh, wait, is that brown or is that black? Is that blue or is that green? Is that orange? Is that yellow? And those are the problems that I've run into, and a lot of people have run into when it comes to Queen Games, and apparently Eagle Gryphon is doing that as well. They're overproduced, but it's eye candy, Do I prefer the Winsome games? Yeah, but I'm a collector as well as player.
Sure.
But as long as it's playable, fine, whatever. Have you played any of the Winsomes?
I have. I got on the list this year too and picked up the set. And I mean, my view is that's all you need in the game. I mean, he really does give you the minimal of what you need, and it plays fine. And as long as you understand that, that's fine. But I am a fan of art and, some not overly produced, but then, like I said, what you get is the publisher's interpretation of that game, which then you lean towards which publisher is it and how much effort and time did they put into, were they just putting it out to just put it out, or was it a love of the game? Was it, it's those kind of things that I don't know. I like good-looking games, though, I have to say.
Oh, I do too. I'll be perfectly honest. I love take 18OE is a perfect example of a meshing of the two. I'm trying to think of I can't think of the publisher. It's Dice Games, DICE. Total brain fart. Moving on. He kickstarted 18OE, but he also went the extra mile and asked for input on the tiles and just the whole graphic design of the game. Because let's face it, a lot of these games, especially from Deep Thought games and stuff, they're extremely functional. They're just not the prettiest to look at.
Right.
But 18OE is beautiful to look at, extremely functional, and you get the best of both worlds. So 1844 and 1854 has Clemens Franz doing the artwork, and he went to the 18xx community and asked for input on the map because he does beautiful artwork. He's the guy from Agricola and all those type Euro games. I've seen pictures of the map, and I think they look beautiful. And so there can be a meshing, but decisions, when a decision needs to be made, in my opinion, especially when you're looking at a game that's going to take anywhere from 3 to 8 hours to play, if you have to sacrifice something, I feel like you have to sacrifice form before you sacrifice function.
Right. Well, and we're in this like great world to where you can get that feedback with Board Game Geek, and you can reach out to that community because they're already using it. And so that you can take something like a Winsome game and then make it into something really special. But you have to reach out to that community and involve them. I would imagine the same would be if you were doing an 18xx game. I mean, you're just foolish if you're not asking the community for their input on it.
Because you look at the 1830 from Mayfair, that's an abject disaster.
Yeah.
The way they produce that, double-sided tiles. This tile for this side is used for this expansion, and this just what not to do. That is the poster boy, because they just, we're just going to do this. Oh, this will be perfect, and it's across the board panned, but it just happens to be the one version that's most accessible, most available to people. So that's what they go off of. But it's just, well, I mean, you're like you said, you're an artwork guy. What do you think of 1830 for them? Have you seen it?
So this is where I just haven't been in the hobby. I mean, I've seen the box. I haven't seen the. I haven't been in long enough to play a lot of.
Let me ask: have you seen Railways of the World?
Yeah, and that's I've played that, and so yeah. I mean, it's fine. I think I also have a hard time judging games in the past now, because I think you can do so much more with them. I don't know.
I feel like gamers are more. They have higher expectations nowadays than they did.
But I also have seen people, like and this is, I think publishers don't get some of this, is that idea of that I can, pull out the Winsome game and put the plexiglass on and have a great evening. And so publishers need to realize that that's the thing that we were talking about. It's like, it needs to fit into that gameplay, and we're more complaining about how it gets in the way of the gameplay than it is. But I mean, I'll open up like a Francis Drake and just, wow, that board is, gorgeous. I'm not sure how it's going to impact the gameplay, but when I first open it, I'm like, wow, like that's very cool. And,
sure. And it helps sell copies.
Sure.
But I feel like too many publishers lose sight that function has to trump. It has to trump form.
Right.
And the artwork's just got to be, but it sells copies. So, hey, what do I know? I'm just, the dude buying Winsome games. So what do I know,
Well, I don't think Matt's going to come back. Looks like he's been lost, and it's 1:00. So I think we should kind of wrap it up.
All right. Well, hopefully people got something out of this, and me sounding like a frog mated with Barry White.
Yeah. It was a bad season for illness this winter. It's been kind of crazy. What are you looking most in the train game genre? What are you most anticipating?
Well, I mean, it's got to be 1846 from GMT. They just need to not screw it up. They don't have to do much to it. You know what I mean? Just don't screw it up. If they do that well, then I think that's going to be a huge boon for the 18xx community. And to be honest with you, for gamers in general, because if you are in the neck of the woods as far as gaming goes, that we being heavy cardboard, that we are in the medium and heavier end of the pool as is, it's not a big leap to get into 18xx games. You said it yourself. You haven't been in the hobby terribly long, yet you were able to make the jump, no problem, right?
Oh yeah, I think any Euro player would really enjoy. I mean, it hits the same things for me, the same the things that Euro games, the joy that I get out of them, it's definitely all there.
So, I mean, it's if 1846 is done well, I feel like that is the single most important pivotal moment in all of 18xx. Like, this could be a big thing for the
right price, the right
Yeah.
price point, the right availability, because GMT's in all distribution,
production,
right.
everything. I think it's like the perfect storm. So that is far and away number one on my list. Other than that, I'm really looking forward to getting a copy of 1880 China when it gets reprinted, which hopefully this year. And also the one that Matt was talking about was 1844 and 1854.
Right.
It's two
Double
games
count.
put together into the same box. It's going to be like 18OE size box or like Caverna size box.
Right.
But I'm looking forward to those. But yeah, far and away, 1846.
Cool. And there's some kind of football game going on today.
I've heard,
I've
you
heard.
know, and seeing as I live in Denver, it's dude, this town is insane right now. This is the first time because we've only lived here, I think, 6 years. And it's cool, like, whenever any of the teams are doing well, everybody's talking about it. And the bummer is I'm a transplant, so I have my own allegiances, and none of which are Denver.
Sure.
However, as long as it doesn't negatively affect the teams that I root for, hell yeah, I'm on board rooting for the local team.
Right.
So I'm excited. I hope the Broncos do well, but in all honesty, I just don't see how the offense scores enough points to keep up with Carolina. I think Carolina just drops a hammer. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But
cool.
So anyway, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, even though you were down with the crud.
It was fun. And like I said, I just hope people get something out of it and they realize that if you dig the theme or you want to take that next step into the wonderful world of trains, don't be afraid. And check out GMT's P500. You don't pay now. You don't pay until it's produced. So
where's it at? Have you looked at it recently? Is it
as far as the numbers last I saw it was in the 5 or 700s, and their P500, it's all about 500. Right. And actually, give me just a moment and I will look here. It is $895, so almost 900. So yeah, it's $47. Hard to beat. So, and to plug the show real quick, if you guys anybody listening, Heavy Cardboard, we come out twice a month. We're super active on Twitter at Heavy Cardboard. You can check us out at heavycardboard.com. And normally I don't sound like this, so bear with me.
All right, man. We'll have a good day, and thanks for joining us.
Cool, and thanks for having me. I'm excited. I'm excited to watch future episodes of you guys. So technical difficulties aside,
we'll figure it out. Yeah, we're just trying to get some people to come talk about. We love train games, so.
That's awesome, man. Well, thanks for having me, and good luck going forward.
All right.
Later.